We now move forward to the first session of the conference. The overarching theme of the discussions will focus on the pathways to developing markets for standalone renewable energy solutions. In this context, the first session will focus specifically on policy and regulatory aspects. Without further ado, I take great privilege in inviting on stage Dr. Kende Yumkela as the moderator and the panelists. Hardeep Harris-Saitamung, Executive Director, ASEAN Center for Energy. Farzana Rahman, Unit Head of Investment for Renewable Energy, IDCOL, Bangladesh. Marcus Wyman, Secretary General, Alliance for Rural Electrification. Jiwan Acharya, Senior Climate Change Specialist, Asian Development Bank. Andy Schroeder, Director, Sunlabab Renewable Energies in Laos. We are pleased to have the Special Representative of the UN Secretary General and Chief Executive for Sustainable Energy for All initiative moderate this session. In this position, Dr. Yumkela will mobilize action toward a sustainable energy future and accelerate implementation of the Secretary General's initiative. From 2005 to 2013, Dr. Yumkela was the Director General of the UN Industrial Development Organization. Prior to assuming the mantle of leadership at UNIDO, he worked in different high-level positions, including as special advisor to two previous director generals and as representative and director of the UNIDO regional offices in Nigeria. I now hand over the floor to Dr. Yumkela to take the session forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I wish to thank IRENA, the Asian Development Bank, and the Alliance for Rural Electrification for asking me to facilitate this session. I serve as CEO for Sustainable Energy for All. Our three targets we are trying to promote around the world are three. One, universal access to energy by 2030, to connect all of those 1.3, 1.4 billion people who have no access to electricity, to modern energy services. Number two, to double the annual rate of improvement of energy efficiency by 2030. Number three, to double the share of renewables in the global energy mix, very consistent with the IRENA target of between 30 to 36% of renewables in the global energy mix. So this session helps us integrate, in fact, all of those three targets in one discussion on extending services using off-grid, mini-grid solutions. I'm very pleased to be here. I do the advocacy and the catalytical work. IRENA does the best analysis on policy. ADB brings the cash to make all of these connect so we can really achieve that target of universal access. But I have a very brilliant panel here. You've already heard their names, and we will just go straight to the discussions. I will give each of the colleagues 7 minutes at the beginning for their presentations or interventions. And then I'll try to make it as interactive as possible. We know there are many experts in the audience, and the idea here was also to learn from you at the same time as we share experiences at the country level, but also from some of these key institutions. I'm going to pick on the two country representatives here at the beginning to give us their own country perspective. Then I'll go to the institutions that are also represented. So I'm not going according to the order of the listing here, because I think the initial presentation we just had has given a good context for our discussions. So with that, I'll go straight to Farzana Rahman, Unit Head, Investment, Renewable Energy in Bangladesh.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So starting on, you know that legal and regulatory aspects is very important for proper functioning of any sector. Renewable energy is of no exception. So I have been with ITCOL since 2006 and has been a part of this wonderful experience of seeing this program to appear as one of the most successful off-grid electrification program in the world. Now we intend to establish similar footholds in other off-grid electrification programs like solar mini-grids, solar irrigation, etc. So today I will talk about the roles and expectations that legal and regulatory aspects have to do to make all this happen. So being a developing country, we have access to electricity for about 63% of the population, meaning that a large portion of the population is still out of electricity services. So in this backdrop, renewable energy came out to be a suitable option. Being a government-owned financial institution, Infrastructure Development Company Limited, ITCOL, undertook this solar home system program back in 2003, following public-private structure, which is being implemented by 48 partner organizations, which are basically microfinance institutions and non-governmental organizations. So this program has done a wonderful job of bringing in lights to about 3 million households in Bangladesh. And now we are looking into implementing other programs into program scale following similar structure. So in this backdrop, I'm happy to say that the government is now working on creating an enabling renewable energy framework for renewable energy programs and projects to take place successfully. We have a policy that came into place back in 2008, and under which the government envisioned to generate 5% of total electricity from renewable sources by 2015 and 10% by 2020, which means that 800 megawatt of electricity has to come from renewable sources by 2015. And the government is now taking on various preparatory measures in this regard. For example, a nodal agency which will be responsible for planning, promoting renewable energy technology, market development services, formulating policies. It has already has come into place, and an act has been formulated in this regard. And the government has taken on a solar power generation project of about 500 megawatt in 2010, under which various programs and projects are being developed. And to make it happen, various relevant agencies have instituted renewable energy wings under those departments, and all those departments are working in very coordinated manner to make it successful. Besides, all these supports have created a major shift in private sector as well. Now we see lots of business entrepreneurs or technology promoters come into the sector. We're working on developing new technologies, new applications. We are now exporting solar panels outside the country. So all these are, you can say that, are the results of government support. And then again, now the Prime Minister has developed a rooftop solar solution in her secretariat. This is also a demonstration of commitment toward the renewable energy sector development. So with all these supports, we are very hopeful that a very enabling environment will emerge in the next 1 to 2 years. So at ITCOL, we have a target to install about 6 million solar home system within 2016, 1,550 solar irrigation pumps, and 50 mini grids, and 450 bioelectricity plants by 2016. So we don't see it as much of a challenge if all these enabling legal and regulatory aspects come into place as expected. That's all.
Thank you very much. It is clear in Bangladesh that you have clear targets set, a nodal agency established. You have also integrated renewable energy in a number of departments already. But I like the last part, the Prime Minister herself setting the example with her solar rooftop installation in the office. Lead by example. Next, we would like to invite Andy Schroeder, Director, Sonalab Renewable Energies Laos.
Okay, good morning, everybody. So from Laos, Sonalab is a Laos registered company. Myself, I'm from Germany. I'm living in Laos since '95. So Sonalab is a highly recognized company all over the world meanwhile. So we started in Laos in 2000 with rural electrification, focused on the rural areas in Laos. At that time, we had an electrification rate of 30%. So it was a huge potential. I have to say, Sonalab is a full profit company. I started from the beginning. I was convinced that only the private sector has to be the driver, for sustainable rural electrification. We can't wait for government programs. And when I see now, after 15 years or almost 15 years, what is electrification, rural electrification in Laos, I have to say we are not so successful what we heard from Bangladesh. Bangladesh, India is different conditions here, it's a different situation. When I hear these numbers, 2.6 million, 3 million solar home systems, amazing, amazing, amazing. For us in Southeast Asia, in these three countries, Cambodia, Laos, and nowadays also Myanmar, it's different conditions. And we are not successful with rural electrification here. Different reasons is also the government is not so focused so much on rural electrification. Especially Laos is also called as the battery of Southeast Asia. The focus is clearly on IPPs who coming in, who are investing in big hydro dams. You probably heard there's a lot of controversial discussions now in Laos, big projects now in Laos, but the focus is clearly not on rural electrification. Also, I have to say, the way so far, all the last decades, what we heard or what we have seen from global donor agencies, especially World Bank, ADB, and nowadays also the Europe Aid, I would say from my perspective as a private company, running a private company at ground level, this is the wrong approach and we have to modify this. This can't go further in this direction. When we see, and my colleague from Cambodia probably can also confirm, we had in the past rural electrification programs from the World Bank. These programs failed, completely failed. So when we do analysis of these projects, of these rural electrification projects, we see in Laos minimum 65% of these installed systems, standalone systems, out of order. Also the approach in Cambodia failed. I don't have real figures now how many systems are failed, but the majority of the systems also out of order. This has different reasons here. Main reason is really that it's not so much for design is number one. The design, international consultants coming in, they coming in with the wrong designs. It's clear that the systems failed after a very short time. Second reason is it's not enough focus on maintenance, on after-sales service and capacity building, and also not focused too much on awareness. Operational cost is another reason. Compared to Bangladesh, we know that these countries, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar here, have really low density. So it's very difficult to come up with a sustainable operation model. But I think we have to say also that for Southeast Asia, different condition in Africa, different condition in Central Asia and South Asia. But for Southeast Asia, the future, the direction must be really on mini-grids. Standalone systems, solar home systems, or for the BOP, the solar lanterns, this is really the wrong approach here for Southeast Asia.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Schroeder. Jiwan, this is a good transition to you. Things working very well in Bangladesh, but in those three countries, a lot of difficulties. Maybe you'll give a broader perspective.
Okay. Do you want me to do it from here or there, or doesn't matter? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So first of all, welcome all of you to Manila and to this IOREC event. You know, when we talk about this energy access, we know that it's not really a new thing. So we all know that there are still so many people without access to electricity. If you look at our government plan, policies, targets, in their political manifesto, everybody says that they will increase the electricity rate by this percentage, they will do this, they will do that. I mean, we are all aware of this one, but still the problem is there. So I wonder what happened. Why is it not happening? So if the answer was so simple, probably it would have already happened, and probably we all would not be needed to do all these things there. So I think the problem is a little bit much more complex than what it appears. So if I look at it, and Kante, just to respond to some of your questions also, I think the bigger problem I see is the situation of every country is different. So I think we cannot just take one solution, one example from one country to another. Oftentimes, we get the failure because we simply try to replicate the same model that is applied in one country to another without really understanding the situation. Bangladesh ITCOL model is very good, successful. There's a lot to learn from there, but probably it will not apply to countries like Laos just like that. I think there's a lot of good elements that we need to take from ITCOL, but we also need to look at the realities in a country like Laos, where the population density is much lower than in the case of Bangladesh. Other thing what I also see is the government have their plans and targets of achieving certain numbers, certain their aspirations, but oftentimes they don't have how to achieve that one. So I think that part is often missing. They know that they need a lot of money, but there's no analysis, there's no discussion about where to get that money, how to get that money. So this is where I'm a firm believer that money is not a problem. If you have a good project, money will find its way to reach there. The question is to identify where the money is, how to access it, how to make your case for that project, how to leverage it. These are the issues which needs to be addressed, this needs to be tackled so that we'll actually get the money for those projects. So I think working with the governments in helping them, facilitating that whole process is very, very important for us. And this is where getting the best practices, learning from other regions and other countries, other organizations is very, very important. The other part which I also see is very important is that we also need to change our mindset in terms of moving away from a purely grant-based towards much more sustainable business models. If you look at the history of what happened in energy access in off-grid areas especially, is that it's all been grant-funded in the past, mainly from some of the multilaterals, even from the bilateral agencies, even the government's own funding. It provided a lot of grant assistance because this is targeted for very poor people, even in rural areas. The justification was that we need money to support them so that they can get access to that one. On one hand, it's very good, but we don't have that much of enough grant resources to provide these systems for free. Second thing is, even if we have money, whether it's really the best use of money to provide that one, that's also another issue of that one. So I think changing that mindset of moving away from a purely grant-based towards much more sustainable business model is very, very important. I think that's what is lacking and in many of these countries, and this is where we all as a community need to work towards that one. But here I do need to emphasize is that we are dealing with poor people, very poor people in remote areas and rural areas. We do need to look at these things much more differently than dealing with a wind farm where the issues are very much different. So it requires your soft support. It requires a lot of helping hand. Requires a lot of patience to get that to support these countries to achieve these energy access. The other part, which is also very, very important, which I touched upon earlier, is this development of actual projects. I think this is where it's very, very important part. And then from our Energy for All initiative, we have also started our project development facility to identify entrepreneurs who have some good ideas but require some help and assistance in developing these projects in a proper format, in a proper template, in doing some feasibility studies, helping them to do some pilot and attract investment. So we don't have to just look at our traditional investors, but look into maybe some impact investors, or even some make it also other type of investors which are available and willing to take a higher risk and willing to accept a lower return, but as an investment, not as providing a grant. I think these are some of the issues that we have observed in our region, and whenever I talk to colleagues from other regions also, the issues are more or less similar. But I think if we try to address these things, probably we'll be able to reach to those people who are still on the waiting list for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jiwan. I'll just quickly summarize. We need tailor-made solutions. We need to strengthen the capacity of governments to execute. As you say, many targets are there, but the ability to execute the programs is a tough challenge. Change of mindset from grant-based to business, sustainable business models. A lot of hand-holding required to create those markets, and of course, the project development facility. I'll then move to Hadiv Harris Situmeng, Executive Director, ASEAN Center for Energy.
This is next.
Next back laser pointer.
This, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to give you some of the highlights, what we have done so far, and then what is the result of our survey and analysis. So I think you know this about the three core dimensions of the sustainable energy system. It consists of energy security, energy equity, environmental sustainability. This is, well, the effective management of primary energy supply from domestic and industrial resources. The reliability and the structure and ability of energy providers. So one of the key routes to maintain the energy path of the energy security is the greater role of the low carbon and zero carbon energy technology, including also the energy efficiency supply side and demand side, and also in distribution side and transmission side. So we may see here there are the World's Energy Council 2004 World Energy Issue Monitoring in Asia. They have every year they make it this. You may see here the energy price is critical issue, and also renewable, and also the one thing is the energy efficiency. The growing demand and higher dependency of imported fuel are making the region more vulnerable to the fluctuating prices of the world energy market. This trend makes energy price one of the top critical uncertainty in the region. And also RE is another critical uncertainty. RE are one of the important solutions to the energy issue that in the region is facing, but the sector is yet mature and remain slow to penetrate the market due to difficulties in sourcing appropriate technology and obtaining subsidy to make it competitive. This is in line, you know this very well, the three clear objectives to be achieved by 2030, doubling the global employment, energy efficiency, and also the share of RE in the energy mix. We made energy outlook for the ASEAN 10 member state. And then there are two things here, business as usual and alternative policy scenario. We aggregate a program at national level as BIU. You may see here the result. We are still heavily dominated. So it means that the program at national level we aggregate that is not enough to have a long-term sustainable fund curbing the CO2, which is reflected for the composition of energy, mixed energy of ASEAN. You may see here the still dominated by coal and also by gas and so on. Yeah. And then you may see the result here. You may see the result here, the CO2. Still, even though in the alternative policy scenario, the aggregate, the program at national is not enough to curbing the CO2 in the long term. So what is the solution then? Solution, this is the risk concern. You may see the fourth point. Another sustainable way to meet the increasing demand is to accelerate the development of clean energy such as renewable and also the alternative energy. So, and then, what is the result right now under APEC? Here, because we have a program, ASEAN Plan of Action on Energy Cooperation, 2010-2015. This is, you may see here, action achieved at least 15%, based on depth estimation of RE and the installed capacity of total aggregated. So, what is the result? The result here on 2011, we already moved forward. Over the target. So ASEAN is moving very good to increasing the role of renewable in the energy mix of ASEAN long term. Here I just want to see you something, but I don't know because time very limited. What's actually ASEAN is moving. Yeah, 10 ASEAN country moving. You may say here the policy target in Brunei Darussalam, what is the policy, what is priority, what is the instrument, and also what is future policy. You may see here Indonesia, for example, yeah, you see here, what happened, and this is the mixed energy target. Yeah, they have a target. And also, they have an instrument policy. What is the instrument in feed, tariff, electricity, and so on. And future, what is the future direction? And also in Laos PDR, for example, here, they are moving also, support mechanism, the way forward. Here, you may see here, policy. And also in Philippine example, yeah, you may see here what is the policy existing, and then what is the energy target and instrument policy mechanism, yeah, and also what is the feed-in tariff. They already introduced. So ASEAN is moving toward, and then they should go forward. And then in the Vietnam also, they have some target for RE policy. We discuss this at least 3 times a year, annual meeting under ASEAN umbrella. This is the feed-in tariff, this is Vietnam, and future policy. Now we have just give you something. This is the core of discussion. So there are some key need to be pondered here. Stable, yeah, reliable support, sustainable project, the most relevant aspect, appropriate technology, socio-economic, and continuous training. So it is the barrier and challenge. Yeah, demographics, policy framework, economic business model. I discussed many discussions before discussing about this. And also the technology and supply chain, yeah, intermittent character, and this is very important thing, intermittent, and social acceptance, capacity, operation, business independence. There's key elements. Now, this is number of survey. We make a survey at the time, yeah, in Indonesia, Cambodia, and so on. Yeah, and ranking about the survey, you may see here, ranking about the survey is financing scheme, technology selection, project operation maintenance, local participation. Our colleague here just only mentioned about projects, operation maintenance, and so on. So this is the key element, yeah, that needs to be solved at national level of every country. So financing mechanism, yeah, what is the funding available, study okay, about the private financing, public, government financing, and so on. And this is what is the move forward. Establish legal framework, set the electricity tariff of grid, rural electrification, avoiding providing subsidy, yeah, allow for long-term agreement, yeah, pay, and also avoid political interference in selecting business model. Now, this is off-grid. Off-grid renewable energy and grid extension. This is the key elements. Yeah? You may see here the key element. This is some technical stable because real-time supply and demand balance must be maintained. But in the hybrid system, we have to make it very good control system and also system communication and decision process. This is the, you may see here, asset management, technical standard, RE role off-grid integration, and then stable, secure, and economic RE off-grid integration. This is have to maintain real-time process. So we have just make it a workshop with the representative of the 10 ASEAN country, which is from the head ASEAN of electric utility. So this is the technical aspect, economics, and strategy. So you may see here, what is then in technical aspect? Prepare all the least available grid, ASEAN Variable RE grid integration compass, ASEAN RE grid integration guidelines. So we will make it this to support ASEAN member state. And for the economic system, regional action on net metering, island grid for remote electrification, energy planning RE and value of RE power system. So we discuss about that, and then we, under ASEAN framework, RESP, together with the German government, we will make a guideline regarding the issue. And this is the economic side, yeah, activity on RE financing and assessment of RE support policy and their effectiveness. So in the strategy smart grid, best practice exchange on smart grid activity in ASEAN member state. So this is one of key elements under that. and also smart grid roadmap for ASEAN. We will make it that together with the expert and also research and development and electric utility to give sharing and knowledge and experience regarding this. I think this is my presentation. You may see, and then you can have it later on. We can discuss during coffee break or whatever. Or you can download also our report, RE, from the www.aseanenergy.org about all of our publication. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Emphasizing again the World Energy Council's trilemma, highlighting some of the technical challenges in doing the off-grid, but you emphasize the need for that legal framework. And yes, I'm happy you raised the pricing issue. That's going to be a big question as we go forward. I'm sure some people would want to talk about that. And then several issues you highlighted on the economics. To get a more global perspective, I left that for last, listening to the Asian context. Now we go to a more global context. Marcos Veriman, Secretary General, Alliance for Rural Electrification.
Yes, thank you for introduction. I'm extremely delighted to be part of this panel, which is really a high-level panel, and I think a number of very nice points have been mentioned already. I will try to bring in the association, the private sector perspective into this discussion. Let me just start perhaps with a week ago, where there was a C4All forum in New York, and I saw a very high interest from the private sector. I think that really makes a bit of a difference. And speaking about, let's say, well, 2-5 years ago, and I think this is really what it's about. On the one hand, we see that, of course, there's public attention, while at the same time, we do not see already that it turns into the sales, into the implementation of projects in a self-sustainable way. Why is this the case for off-grid? I think that it's not a mass market. It's a highly complex market, as explained earlier by a number of panelists and also by the keynote speakers. It's a market where it needs a lot of commitment from the government first. It needs an understanding of the local market conditions. It needs, the inclusion of the local contents, which means partnership. Does it work with partnership with the local people? And this is why ARE has been established to help and assist on a number of levels, which is on the one hand giving recommendations on the political, on the financial, on the technology level. That again, next to the conference room, there is the exhibition area of IOREC, where 25 exhibitors will showcase their experiences, and you're of course more than welcome to visit our stand, but of course even better to present their business cases. What we observe as the Alliance is that there are a number of gaps. I mean, certainly in this round, we are all very committed to C4All targets, but at the same time, we face certainly a reality outside where a lot of people still are more interested in being relying on fossil fuels and just applying the old business models. So what it needs is a strong messaging outside of this room, and this is one part of the promotional work ARE is doing. At the same time, of course, we try to work with the government on many levels, which means that we want to achieve and want to assist in the enabling frameworks on market conditions and business models, and especially this in regard to renewable energy markets. We are sure that the public money, the public aid is not sufficient to meet all the targets which were just mentioned. So it needs involvement of the private sector. What we experience in this regard is that there are a number of very small companies at the start who were the pioneers who started the Alliance to build it up and to bring this topic up to the agenda. But now we see more and more also through the initiatives, through IRENA, but also on many levels through the regional partners in Africa, but also in Asia, in Latin America, where we are active with our 90 members, that they want to engage, that they want to do more, and I think this is a very nice sign. At the same time, to bring in then the bigger companies who could be utilities, who need to learn also about the business model, about small-scale renewables, I think it's important to give them this chance. I mean, they are the stronger players, they should do it, and I think there's always possibilities to cooperate in many ways. In general, as we are speaking about the ecosystems in a way, today. I think it's very important to start small, not always to think too big from the start, rather to find some solution, to see what is feasible on the local area, to grow it to the regional level, and maybe even then apply it on the national level. Also, our experience shows that if we implement it on the community level, we rather have a better outreach because then we have the support directly of the public sector in that regard, and that will help also to bring in cross-sector cooperations. So it's not only about energy access. I mean, in the end, we speak about the possibility that it's not only, well, making use of electrification, but rather to see what are the needs behind. So is it telecoms? Is it iPhones? Is it any kind of use? Is it lightning? There are a lot of things which really mobilize and incentivize people to spend their money rather on fossil fuels than on renewable energy than on fossil fuels, and I think we should promote that. Well, not to speak too long at this stage, Candy, but what I would like to say is what is the Alliance doing these days, and our president just announced it earlier, is that with the global network we have, we want to engage more on the national level. So we established now one employee, also with some support of the European Commission in New Delhi. And I think this could be a very nice thing, because it's very important that the private sector needs to understand what are the local framework conditions, how to make use of them, and this can only be done by specialists in the local area, and then really to educate the sector also. So we need to learn also about your market and your own home countries to see what fits best. But at the same time, I think this is a feasible approach, and I think this is also what C4All is doing in a well, calibrate the high-level initiatives towards the country level, and we are happy to complement that. Also, what we try to do these days is, together with the European Commission, to set up a workshop where we will elaborate on, well, effective or the key success factors for rural electrification. So to see what makes really business models self-sustainable. We hope that we can do that, well, by the autumn this year, and then bringing all the competences, well, of Alliance members, but also outside of the Alliance. Well, in full appreciation of all this, I think what we should think more about, and so it's on the one hand, of course, talking and promotion is a very important part, but on the other hand, we need to think about on how to best implement a number of projects to find the critical mass in the short term where we can build up on. And in that regard, ARE is certainly one good part. Set up earlier this year is a long project line where we say, a pipeline where we say, okay, these projects are feasible in a certain region, not to directly standardize it, but to give the confidence to the market and to the public donors and to the public institutions that it's market segment. And I think this is a very important part too. And perhaps, well, can the C4All initiative could build up on that. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcus. Well, we have 45 minutes to open it up a little bit, and I'm sitting there sleeping a little bit. So I need some lively debate. If I watched your presentation here, business as usual, we'll still have 700-800 million energy poor in Asia. We'll still probably have another billion something using biomass for cooking. You keep talking business models. I didn't hear enough content. What is that sustainable business model, G1? Give us some elements, because I don't think you convinced Andy. Andy is not sure. Maybe, Andy, you want to give a crack at that? What goes into a sustainable business model for us to scale up?
Yeah. But what I heard so far is also money is not a problem. We hear this since decades from all around. Money is no problem. You guys come with a nice project idea. No doubt we will finance this. And this is the biggest problem. We have since decades a big gap in understanding. We're talking a different language. The global donor agencies or this financing institution talking completely different than these people at ground level who are doing the real work.
So hold it again, Andy.
Hold on. We have all these nice slides from you, from what we heard from the ASEAN. We hear this since decades. You have all these frameworks and all these new strategies, whatever. But who is doing the real work at ground level? And this is people, this is doing companies in countries where there's no financial institutions available. These companies don't get money. There's no legal framework available. What you heard, what you mentioned as an example for Laos, sure, we have since 2008 a renewable strategy signed by the Prime Minister. But what is it in reality? What does it mean for the people? Absolutely nothing.
So, Andy, hold it a minute. G1, the guy says money is still the problem. It's not reaching the guys who want to implement the renewable solutions. Money is a problem.
No. I disagree that money is a problem, but I agree some of the points that Andy made is that money cannot just flow just like that. So we need to have a case. We need to have a proper activities defined in terms of who will receive the money, how it will be used, because we will be accountable for the money that we have. You have to make sure that the money goes to the right people, it goes to the right channel, goes to certain procedures are followed properly. So this is where, on one hand, there is money is needed, on the other hand, money is not being spent. If you look at some of these countries, even the governments, if you look at their budget, they are not been fully spent. If you look at them, there's still a lot of money available in many of these countries. Of course, not in every country, but there is still the government has not been able to use their own money for certain things because it has issues with their own procedure, also maybe disbursement issues, maybe all the political unrest. There are lots of other factors are causing. So money can be within the governments, money can also be found within the same countries, money can be found in the multilateral banks like ours, money can be found in other funds and so on. So money is there. What is really important is we need to have all these things sorted out so that who has money can easily give that money. I think this is where the problem is and this is where the difference is.
Farazan, somehow in Bangladesh, you seem to be able to connect the money with the entrepreneurs, those who guys want to do the real stuff. So what did you do to create that enabling environment? Or maybe it's a business model to connect those two?
You see, maybe lucky for us, we had an already well-established NGO network which had, access to the grassroots level, which we harnessed in a big ways. Then again, the availability of call, and the capacity to work or implement program following private-public structure, that again played a large role. And maybe again, the availability of entrepreneurs, lots of entrepreneurs who came up understanding the opportunities for, promoting or entering into the sector and developing local capacity. For example, the battery industries, the solar panel industries. So all those elements, jointly played out well, which made this, program becoming this successful.
G1 talks a lot about capacity building in government as well to create those enabling conditions. She's mentioned now some other dimensions here, the role of the NGOs, the entrepreneurship capacity as well in the country. Marcos, Laos wants to do the same thing, Indonesia. I mean, what can you offer them to build all of those capacities needed for that business model?
Well, I hope quite a lot. On the one hand, I think that when we look into the competence of the ARA members, so we represent the full value chain, starting from, looking into the potential of renewables for specific technologies. At the same time, then we look into identity.
Your mic has a problem.
Yeah, thank you very much. So then we look also in how to identify the right projects, how to scale them up in a way, and then how to implement, and then to turn them from a demonstration project into some self-sustainable project. And I think with this competence, so we are not only those who want to have a distribution channel towards Asia, so we rather want to have the innovative thoughts from the locals. We want to combine that in a partnership and balancing approach, and then to see how we can combine that efforts towards the government to give them the better advice. And I think this is very important because the conditions are just very, very different.
Hadi, we have a big challenge, eh? You've listened to these guys. What perspective do you have? Marcos can help, but you at the World Energy Council, you have a lot of those utilities with you. Are they really ready to support off-grid or integrate renewables into the system as you look at Asia? Are those big operators ready?
Well, as I mentioned before, one of the key elements under barrier and challenge of the off-grid RE rural electrification in ASEAN mentioned that referring to business models, for example, a large variety of business models for off-grid rural electrification exists in the ASEAN region, and depending largely on local condition and policy and project and then the policy objective here. When we did general ranking survey issue for the ASEAN member state here, the survey result from the study show that that the financing scheme, project setup, and business model are considered as the most important decisive factor in investing renewable energy rural electrification projects. This is what. And the second, also the second ranking is technology selection. The third one is operation and maintenance, and also the local participation. So this is the ranking when we did the survey issue under the off-grid rural electrification. So what is the need to be to move forward then? So everybody already discussed that, but the problem is at national level, as my friend discussing about local in Laos. Here, establish legal framework to encourage the private sector to get involved in off-grid rural electrification. Properly set up the electricity tariff for off-grid rural electrification. Avoid providing subsidy, because sometimes if subsidies still work there, this question is in the upstream level or downstream level, make it a little bit complicated, particularly in a small island in Indonesia. And also allow a long-term agreement between public and private sector in order to have some enabling investment. And avoid political interference. So this is the way forward need to be done as a member state. But so many variation, as I said before, for the business model is depend on national level, because you know that we are facing the remote area, and then some regulation exists, so much variation. Thank you.
Andy, I try to see if everybody can convince you that when you leave this conference, something different is going to happen in Laos and you can invest big time. Did we convince you yet?
Look, what is the general problem is, how can you come up with a commercial viable, sustainable business model for off-grid electrification in a country where the tariff in grid electrification is heavily subsidized? It's about 3 to 5 cents. How can we become commercial viable? Which business model is behind it? It's impossible. And this is in all these countries. They have heavily subsidies on fuel as well as also on electrical tariffs. Come on, this is completely nonsense. It can't be. So nobody can convince me. I'm doing this since 15 years, and so far I have invested and I have lost in Laos probably more than $1 million. For all because I was so innocent in these early days, and I was so naive. I thought I can come up with innovative rural electrification models, with operational models where I don't need the NGO scene, where I don't need the public donor scene. Hey, I failed. It's not possible. So, and this is my lesson learned now. These private-public partnerships in LDC countries on rural electrification, this will never work, because we have all these problems. You mentioned money is there, money is in the government. We never talk in these kind of plenums here, workshops, we never talk about corruption, briberies. This is what we don't want to talk about. But it's also a fact, and this is what we have really to be clear in all these countries around the world who have a problem with rural electrification. Number one. Number two, for commercial viable business models, together with the government, not possible from my view in this experience what I had the last 15 years. The new direction is we have to find anchor clients for commercial viable business models. This is what we're doing now in Myanmar. Marcus mentioned this. The best anchor client here is the telco industry. In Myanmar, for example, they're investing in the next 5 years 18,000 towers off-grid in a country with 40 million people without access to energy, with 44,000 villages without access to energy. This is our anchor client. We try to combine them. They buying from us energy 24/7. So this excess energy we can easily use also for electrifying rural areas. This is a way forward. But that we wait for private-public partnerships, what we have done the last 20 years, it will never work. Show me one country where it's really worked, where really is an off-grid electrification success beside Bangladesh and India.
Thank you very much. So now I turn to the audience. You see how energetic I want it to be? But I don't want an attack session here. I want a dialogue. I want to see how we scale up, because the challenge is big. The people need energy. They really need it, and their business models. So there are many experts. I see some hands up. But please make it short, 2 minutes for your intervention. I will not give you my own microphone, but there's another one there.
Thank you, Dr. Imkela. I'm Akanksha from India. There's a lively debate started on public-private partnership. And if I take you back to Ghana IOREC 1, where in your opening statement you said that there seems to be a gap in putting systemic learning in place within the government departments to be able to pick these success stories from the private sector and be able to, also put the whole system in place to ensure that the money flows into the private sector. So, here is Jeevan Acharya saying that there's money, and here is Andy saying there's no money. And then if you recall your own comments about the government's capability to put systemic learning in place to be able to bridge that gap. Your comments on that, and are we thinking along those lines? Thank you.
Okay. And if you have questions as well, direct it to one of them. But let's come here. Next guy. I'll come to India in a minute.
I've got a slightly different take on this, is that I'm finding that in many countries where the present level of electrification is quite low, the one tendency is to extend grid at all costs. At all costs mean it's really all costs without really thinking about the economic viability. Now, okay, 20 years ago, there was no other option. But now we have options which are more economical and which are more efficient. But we are just not looking at those options. We are just blindly following what's been followed earlier. And it is what we find from the engineering perspective, the experts, they said that, well, there are other options, why don't we follow those options? But unfortunately, it doesn't percolate down to the government policy level. They just don't talk about that. But even I'm from Australia, there are remote localities which were originally served by grids. Now they're seriously considering of breaking off from grid or putting in additional support at the end of the grid to compensate that. And on the other hand, we have got countries who are extremely difficult to connect by grid extension. They are only thinking in those terms and not at the other alternatives.
Jiwan, let me pick that up a little bit. You mentioned mindset from grants to sustainable business model. He's saying there's another problem. Some people are convinced that extend the grid at any cost. So my dear friend here cannot operate.
No, I also agree that just for the sake of providing electricity access, we should not look at extending the grid only as an option. But in some cases where there is a possibility, probably extending the grid is the best option because the grid is better. But having said that, if there are remote areas, mountainous areas, the economic costs and returns doesn't make sense. Looking into off-grid solution, or even before looking at the off-grid, maybe looking at the mini-grids probably, and also another area which could be a better solution. If mini-grid is not possible, not feasible, then looking into individual solar home systems could be an area. Even within the solar individual home system, there are bigger systems which can cater to almost all of the electricity energy need of the house, or just providing a very simple solar lanterns alone may be good enough to just to get them started. But I think we do need to look at all these things in a proper way to see which area, which kind of a solution is best. And unless and until we do that properly, we may be making a lot of mistakes on the way.
Who provides that information? Is it the government? Is it Asian Development Bank? Who will be able in Laos to show the government what Irina presented earlier, that in fact in some of those locations, the off-grid or mini-grid is more cost-effective? Who is to do that? That information gap is there, right?
That gap is there, but there have also been good initiatives going on from our Asian Development Bank, from the World Bank has done it, IRENA. There are several other organizations are also supporting, assisting governments to do that planning. For example, in Sumba Island in Indonesia, we are working with the government of Indonesia to look at that options in a particular island. Similarly, in Myanmar, World Bank and ADB are helping the government to make that plan in terms of where grid extension is a good way, where mini-grids is a good way, and where off-grid systems, individual household systems is there. So I think we do need to do that one for many other countries as well.
I'm looking at my friends from IRENA or the World Bank. Is that the kind of information we should regularly provide to the policymakers? My dear friend Vijay Iyer, you're now in charge of the Asia energy sector policy of the World Bank.
Well, not yet, but soon. Thank you and good morning. I'm Vijay Iyer from the World Bank. Let me actually make 3 points that sort of tie up the two streams of thought that have been expressed. One, I think we need to look at it also from the policymaker's perspective. The grid electrification does provide a lot of quick connections, good supply at reasonable efficient cost to a large number of consumers, and it is a driver for economic growth in most countries. So we cannot sit here and say grid is bad, off-grid is good, let us do off-grid, let us forget about the grid. It's not possible. I think the idea that we have to push is coexistence. We have to find ways, what Jeevan said, in helping countries plan what are the areas, what are the elements where the grid makes more sense and where the off-grid makes more sense, and then put in place a set of policies that support both. Now, the issue of subsidy is a very crucial one. Power prices are subsidized in most countries. And you would even see it in the developed countries. There is a raging debate about making power prices competitive so that industry can flourish, can produce goods and services at reasonable cost, and can produce jobs. This is a perennial dilemma for the policymaker. They have to see how they can balance energy prices with other prices so that the overall services that industries and consumers need can be obtained at a reasonable cost. So the idea would be to see how certain entry points for off-grid electrification can be subsidized. And the Bangladesh example is a good model where there have been very targeted smart subsidization, grant making for certain aspects of the costs of private sector that are very high in terms of setting up, let's say, channels for distribution of solar products, finding ways in which quality assurance can be subsidized so that producers and consumers have good information about good quality. So there are areas that can be subsidized to make the playing field a little bit more level between grid and off-grid. And the last point I wanted to say was about the money. Some people are saying money is available, some people are saying money is not available. Both are equally true and both are equally false. The reason I say that is because money is available, but the people who have the money do not see the projects where they can put the money. So if you're talking about impact investors, institutional investors that are willing to invest in renewable energy projects, they don't see the scale that they would like to invest in. It's an issue of aggregation. You have several small projects that require small amounts of money, maybe up to $1 million, but investors are not willing to take the transaction costs of investing 1 million here, 50,000 there, $200,000 in the third place. The whole issue of aggregation is a serious challenge for the off-grid and mini-grid industry. And I think in this conference, if we can talk about how we can achieve scale through aggregation. We see a lot of companies that do 10 projects, 20 projects, they go and do 50 villages, but they are not able to go beyond that scale. And I think the reason is that we are not able to provide mechanisms for aggregating those projects into a scale, into a package that investors can see and bring in the money that is required to scale it up. Thank you.
I am sure those last 2 points you made will be explored in the other sessions as well as we go forward. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm a private sector player in Bangladesh. Adding on to what my colleague from ITCOL has stated, I think from policy regulation perspective, what has worked out well in Bangladesh as far as the renewable solar home system was that, first of all, it was a private sector and NGO partnership which actually led to this whole program. And we have Mr. Dipal Barua here, who was heading at that point Gramin Shakti, and we from the private sectors were actually the first facilitators of setting up the solar home system program, the technology and the financing model. What happened was the government and the World Bank partners and everybody came and sort of rolled on to that. They saw that something locally that was getting done, and the development partners came and sort of helped us scale up to it. What I consistently find when I go around the world attending such conferences, I think the biggest problem I find is in off-grid areas, very minimum involvement of local participants. Everybody is busy with the big megawatt plants, the big plants, all the regulators, just like in Bangladesh. Also, if you looked at the initial stage, it was the NGOs, the local private companies involved in off-grid renewable energy who went out there, took the challenge and did the initial models, and when the model succeeded, what happened, the other actors came and and what is good from policy and regulation is that the least the policy and regulation when it comes to off-grid, it is helpful. Why? If you go and see Bangladesh today, mini-grid exists in Bangladesh even 10 years back. The only difference is running in diesel generators. It's not running in solar. That's all is the thing. So today when ITCOL is looking for 50 mini-grid sponsors, the difficulty is not the business concept, because the business concept exists. You go to a rural Bangladesh marketplace, you will find a guy with a 10 kVA diesel generator, maybe lighting 20 or 200 shops, right? He's already doing that. What we want to do is do it cleaner, better, and more sustainable. Now, that is the advantage we have sitting in Bangladesh, is that because of the microcredit proliferation over the last 20 years, the entrepreneurship nature and character of rural Bangladesh is significantly different from rest of the world. So that's one difference. Yeah. But there are things to learn from Bangladesh, whether it is solar home systems, whether it is irrigation pump, whether it is mini-grid. Our recommendation is policy regulation is good, but give it to an independent agent like ITCOL or whatever, give them the money, give them some framework, let them do the dialogue with the private sector and make it happen.
Thank you, sir. Nepal?
Thank you. I think this is a very good debate. At the end of the day, the question I raised at the stage of civilization, 1.3 billion people without electricity. Can we afford it or not? We have a Asian Development Bank, we have a World Bank, and we have finally IRENA. So can we afford it? For how many years that 1.3 billion people is still without electricity? This is our moral responsibility. How to find the solution. It's not solution from Asian Development Bank. It's not solution from the only private sector. So both of us, we need a solution. Bangladesh case, when it started in 1996, only 15% people have electricity at that stage. 85% no. Literally more than 100 million people without electricity. We thought about at the cost of kerosene, you can buy a solar home system. It was a very utopian idea. The per watt panel, $7. Now we are buying less than $1. Can you imagine in 1996, per watt $7? And Rohimapuru's tanks, they have a deep cycle battery they produce in Bangladesh. What Farjana, our sister, mentioned about the enough condition, how the solar home system growing. So financing is very important. At the same time, large scale operation that reduce the cost, and we create a lot of green jobs in Bangladesh. So success should not be liabilities. Many people say atypical in Bangladesh happen. Microfinance happen in Bangladesh. Only success in Bangladesh, but it's translated. When I say sunlight is there, we have people without electricity. How to address all these people? Sunlight is available, or geothermal is available, wind speed is available. How to do it? So we have to create a business model in context to that particular region or country. It's not that you are replicating Bangladesh. Replication sometimes create a ego. you are replicating something from other country. But we have to create, I think the point is that what our friend Gian mentioned, that money is not a problem. And we have a very good clarification from our IR mentioned that is not a problem, but we need a bridging the gap between the people without electricity, financing institution. They have a lot of indicators to get the projects. So I think how to reduce the gap between the financial institution and the people without electricity. I think at this stage, Bangladesh can be an inspiration. We can create more inspiration in other parts of the world. Thank you.
All right, I'll come here. I'll go back to the audience, but let me get a comment from here, and then I'll come back to my panel. We still have 20 minutes.
Thank you. This is Ernesto Macias from the Alliance. I would like to insist in something that it is quite obvious, but I think the leader of these plans must be the governments. The governments need to take the lead. What happens in rural electrification, it's many times comes from initiatives from multilateral organizations, from donor countries, for whatever. But sometimes, I wouldn't say it's in front of the government, but the government, it's not an active actor, it's a passive actor. So what I think is the same we have done in developed countries, trying to convince the governments to implement policies for feed-in tariff, for example, in the past, is because we were offering a global framework. Which are the benefits of implementing renewable? And it's development of industry, development of jobs. There is not a single solution, obviously. It's not rural electrification or grid connected, are both. But the question is, the governments need to really decide and to implement the policies and the legal frameworks, because in the last few years we have realized that very many important groups are curious about this. They are intending to invest as a private entities in this framework, seeing that the developed world is almost finished in terms of business. And the great business is potentially coming from developing countries. But the problem mainly is because in every country, the situation is different. In many countries, unfortunately, they don't really trust. And so it's our mission, and I think IRENA's mission, to really offer this global overview of the benefits, environment, climate change, and so ever, but practical benefits as the development of industries in the countries. I think we should move from export to these countries to produce the elements in the countries. Renewable energy has this benefit, not only installing systems and maintaining systems, and when I say systems, we need to go to the other step. I wouldn't say providing light is not enough. I would say it's good in some of the cases, but we need to move forward the supply of power for a great real step and a development of the countries. But as I do insist, we need to have proactive governments that understand that this is a part of the solution for the country and take the initiative.
Thank you. I come back to the panel. I want to explore a little bit Bangladesh. Andy raised the issue of anchor demand. He sees a potential of using those cell phone towers. Did you try that as well in Bangladesh?
You mean telecom towers?
Telecom towers. Sorry.
Yes. In our country, already the major mobile operators are awarding projects to provide solar-based solution to their transceiver stations. We have financed to such projects. We have financed so far 100 such telecom towers.
When you say we have financed, so your agency finances the towers or some entrepreneur to provide the energy to the tower?
It's like working as a, you see, public-private model. The mobile operator is awarding contract to the private sector operator, which is supposed to implement and operate the project. it's, for example, Mr. Monwar Misbah Moin is there. They're doing one of the projects. So after getting awarded, they come to us for financing. So we provide long-term financing for them to install the systems and, the long-term financing at concessionary rates.
Can I push you a little bit on the issue of maintenance of off-grid solutions? How are you handling that in Bangladesh? After service?
After service.
Yeah,
okay. I can share you with our experience under Solar Home System Program. So it's the duty of the microfinance institutions, partner organizations that are selling systems to the households. Our role is to ensure that the households are receiving the after-sales services. What we do to ensure that is we have this arrangement for doing round-the-year inspection. So we have an inspection team which are inspecting, door-to-door and visiting these households and are watching and ensuring that the after-sales services are being reached to them as arranged under the program.
Excellent. Marcos and G1, energy for productive uses beyond just lighting. What is your experience? In some countries I hear, they connect it also with the agricultural practices to raise income in those communities. Are there some good business models where you've seen this help the spread of mini-grids when it's linked to their productive activities in the community?
First of all, I think that when looking into productive uses is the most important part of rural electrification, having in mind that there are very many risks. We need to see how to create returns on the local level. And what I experience with our members, and well, it's I think most of them in this case on productive use would then be based in Africa so far to make experience there. We have also made a nice brochure on best practices where we show, which is, well, in our exhibition area, we showcase what comes beyond a starting model, how to grow it in a way, and what are the productive, the consumptive side. And so it always depends a bit on the local condition, what kind of sector is the relevant one. Is it a community who could have the lead and to provide well, some support, or is it an industry which is just already relevant there, which has some competitive advantage? So it needs a lot of investigation to find the right partner first, but then to make it happen and it's just the Ricardo theorem of economics to make use of comparative advantages. And if you make this, you will have create an absolute cost advantage, and that will grow the sector on the local level, and maybe you find another region where you find another comparative advantage to grow another sector. So you need to understand the local level, the local environment and the local economy. And I think it mentioned by many partners today here and colleagues that it's not to pour money from top down. I mean, in the end, the multiplier, the leverage for all this, what we want to achieve is the people themselves. And if they find a reason to engage with some business rationale to make up their living out of it, I mean, this will certainly make it happen.
Thank you. This productive use and use is very, very important. What I firmly believe is that energy is just a means. It's not the end in itself. So energy has to be used for productive uses, and unless and until we ensure that one, then we are not getting into what we are achieving. So whether energy used for income generation or for health or for education or for any other activities, we have to ensure that there are those uses are there which energy can provide so that people will actually benefit for that one. There are a couple of points that I would like to make here. One is when you're looking at individual household level systems. So of course having energy, electricity at home is always better. They can use it for lighting, for education for children and so on and so forth. But looking at some of the evaluations of this kind of individual household system, the productive use part, especially that increases their income, we have some cases here and there, but it hasn't been that much. What has really helpful is that the productive uses of energy requires a little bit of more power, much more reliable supply of electricity for them to use that one. So this is where kind of a mini grid, if you need to move to the next level, which is for mini grids and so on, are much more better suited for the productive uses of energy. We talked about this mobile telecom. This is one area which is a very good productive use of energy. So they use that one, they can pay, that's part of the sustainable business models. So we need to look for these kind of anchor loads. And then maybe next is look at the businesses, maybe some shops in the tea shops in these areas, having some local restaurants, hotels, and so on, resorts in some of the remote areas. Businesses could be the second best category. The third one, probably the community. So I think there's a change in the way we do our off-grid systems. Before, we used to target household first. And this is where the productive end users has not been that much. But if you look at it from the other side, target the anchor load first, because they will pay. They need money and they make money out of it, and so that they can pay. That will make your business sustainable. Look for business communities and then also the household. This ABC model has been tried out in many countries as well. I think to me, that's the future. Thank you.
Andy, you wanted to make a point?
Yeah, productive use sounds good on the paper. But again, what I said before, doing productive use in a country where the electrical tariffs in electrified areas heavily subsidized makes it very difficult for people in off-grid areas to do productive use. Productive use means to increase their income, means they have to produce something that they can sell on the market. So this is very difficult when they have a disadvantage with much higher tariffs here in these off-grid areas. So productive use means also we're talking about areas, off-grid areas, where people living who had no clue what to use with the energy before. So this means we have to focus on a holistic approach. It's not enough that the energy provider comes in these areas and provides energy and said, okay guys, now you have energy, now you do productive use. We need also people, ideal NGOs, which focus is on showing people, on doing income generating activities. And we need also, in this alliance, in this holistic approach, we need also traders who coming into these villages, who buying from these people. Otherwise, how can these people bring their products to the next market? I'm talking about countries with a low density. Again, it's different when you have lots of people living close to each other. But in these countries in Southeast Asia, what I mentioned before, in these LDC countries, it's very difficult to do really in reality productive use. It sounds very nice, but really how to make money out of this is very, very difficult.
Good. Andy will not let you go free. You have to address the pricing and subsidy question. I like that, Andy. Keep hammering it until in the next sessions, they spend quality time on that. You cannot say you want off-grid. You cannot say you want entrepreneurs. Then you're subsidizing somebody else. Put your money where your mouth is. That's what Andy's saying. Right, Andy? Do it right. But Irina said it before. Huh? Irina said it before. Where and when we introduce these solutions matters. Because the guy borrowed money, created his mini-grid, and then 2 years later you come with your big power lines and the guy goes out of business. Mainstreaming this also into the agricultural policy, into the other production policy in the community matters. Irina's presentation at the beginning was developing all of those frameworks. Very good. I'll take 2 questions from here. Because we're closer here, the energy level is higher here. But I want to shift to the energy level of the other room, yeah? So you guys ready? I'm coming to you next. 2 from here, 1 here, and then I come to this guy. Yes.
Thank you. I convey the greetings from Asian Institute of Management and particularly to the host ADB for enabling. I'm an applied researcher on the practice of sustainability. Please bear with me for this conceptual submission. We heard about the keyword energy poverty. So I believe that energy poverty is not necessarily existing in the rural areas. It is also existing in the urban areas. So I was also wondering how to decouple this and create a business model which will work and self-finance. And then if we just release the constraint that an energy grid needs to be sort of positioned in one place, if we release that condition to make it mobile and then get a proper scale, then new opportunities will open up. For instance, waste to energy. If we have a mobile, appropriately scaled waste to energy unit, which can the urban areas and process the waste to energy supported by a solar grid there, solar panel there, in the mobile unit itself. So we are achieving many things. We are cleaning up the waste, cleaning up the air quality, bettering the water, etc. And then what happens is, we could think of a storage facility. Then we go back to the financing aspect. Who will finance for this? There is finance available because it's in the interest of these urban people that they are getting their waste processed there.
Okay, let's hold it there. Thank you. I'll keep that for G1, but I'll come later to you. A second point from here, and then I move over here. Yeah. I'm going to take several of them, and then so that we use that for the closing. Go ahead.
Hello, this is Bernardo Fabula from the Philippines. I'm one company in the Philippines that concentrate on solar and wind. I hope everybody here understands the situation here in the Philippines. We have the most expensive electricity so far in Asia.
We didn't know that. How much are you paying?
We're paying almost 9 pesos. I do not know the equivalent of that. But compare our electricity from our Asian neighbor like South Korea and Japan, which has only about 4 pesos, 3 pesos per kilowatt hour. Ours here is 10 pesos, 9 pesos. And the reality is our regions here, fuel from the sun is the strongest so far. We have an average of 5 kilowatt hour per square meter per day irradiance.
So what opportunities do you see?
When you relate it to the amount of production that this solar PV is going to produce, payback time would be something like less than 10 years. The problem with us here is financing. I understand we have a very big shortage of electricity. Our country is only producing about 72 billion kilowatt hour per year, and every Filipino is only consuming 775 kilowatt hour of electricity per year, compared to our Asian neighbor that they consume about 10,000 kilowatt hour of electricity per year. Those investors here who want to invest in PV technology, especially off-grid, we have around 7,000 islands. Only here in Metro Manila has the most stable supply of electricity. But when you go to the southern part, which is Mindanao, an average of 3 to 5 hours a day brownout. So I would suggest if ADV has a lot of money for off-grid PV, I would suggest that you panel it in a proper way. If you can have a straight way, because I understand the Asian Bank panel the finances to our local banks here. But if you make a system that this finances is going to go directly to the end user, that's most of our problem.
Okay.
And when you...
We have to stop there because I need to take 2 more before we close. So,
yes, sir. Thank you very much.
So G1, you have a market. We'll come back to you. You have 2 questions for you. Thank you. 2 from that side, and then I'll take Bob Icott and go to my panel, and we close. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm from the local government here in the Philippines. And then to what you have just said, it's really very true. The cost of power in the Philippines is very high. In fact, in my city, it's the highest in the whole Asia. It's about 34 cents, US cents per kilowatt hour. And the efficiency and the reliability of supply of energy is probably, I would say, 70% because of the brownouts. Now, when I heard that the flow of money will come easy, it's a song to my ear.
He didn't say easy. He said it's available. It's to connect.
Okay, it's not corrected, but still available. The problem here is the flow of information from the financiers to the recipients. Like our local governments, we don't have any idea where to get the money for competitive financing. That's why we attended this forum, in order to network with whoever can help us implement, especially renewable source of energy because of the reliability of the grid that we have in the part of the country. So our city can never be competitive economically because of the cost of power and the reliability of the services. So with the right financing, competitive financing for us to develop rural renewable energy, hopefully we can turn this around. So when you say that the flow of money is available, we will find that over here. I just probably after this forum, I will look for you guys, whoever can give us a competitive financing so that our dreams can come true.
How
Thank you
many
very much.
bankers in the room? How many people are from financial institutions? Rural finance, microcredit? Raise your hands. How come there are so many, there are few of you? Are you all scared now to show yourselves? Where are you? We have markets here. We have entrepreneurs. They're ready to do business. Last one from that point. Yes, the guy at the back. The guy way at the back.
Good afternoon. I am Arup Mitra from the US Commercial Service in India. I want to make a point that we have been talking about scalability of projects, but I have worked in renewable energy and with companies for several years. I have seen that the scalability and the robustness of technologies, apart from solar and wind, particularly in the domains of biomass and biogas, which are more abundant and more generally available, are also a hindrance, because the solar and the wind technologies have been developed and are scalable, but those are very site-specific. I come from a part of India where wind is not adequate for throughout the year, solar intensity is not good, but biomass is generally available in much wider parts of most countries. But the technologies that we find in most situations are very boutique, are not amenable to large-scale adaptation sometimes. And therefore, we have to understand that the policymakers also look for reliability. If they put projects because of the accountability, they also look for reliability. So I see a gap in that. And mechanisms are available to implement projects, but mechanisms are not easily available for technology developers to develop robust and adaptable technologies. So I wanted to leave that as a food for thought and explore options if the technology developers can also in the biomass and biogas areas. I take example from one demonstration project I tried on micro turbine using biogas. Good. So I have experienced this firsthand, so I leave that as a food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For information for the audience, this is why IRENA has the REMAP program. They're doing studies now to show the renewable energy resource map for country. You're right. There's some other places where biomass or biogas can be a solid option, but that open platform they're going to provide will be very useful to many countries. Our hope is countries can use that methodology to even do their own community level renewable energy resource mapping to see what resources are really there and what technologies you would need in, as Vijay said, in an integrated manner. Sometimes it's not just one. You can integrate technologies. Bob, are you talking about money now for these folks?
Thank you very much, Kandi. A few comments that I think will reinforce some of the things that have been said. I'm Bob Eichert from the State Department, and I've been working with AID for over 30 years on these issues, and it's very interesting to see, obviously, the tremendous change in the policy framework that where we are now from where we were when I started working with Bangladesh in the late 70s on rural electrification and the grid extension. I mean, it's clear that as we look around the world that, in a sense, there are many countries that have taken the step at the highest policy level to make rural electrification a high priority. And we have them, in a sense, in this region. Certainly, Vietnam is an example. We have the Brazil example. We have the Morocco example. We have, a number of countries where there has been a high-level commitment to rural electrification. A lot of these models have been grid extension models, although the case in Morocco, there was clearly a solar decentralized element to it because there were a lot of areas in Morocco that were really off the grid tremendously. So why can't this be done with regards to the off-grid space and in a way that makes sense from the standpoint of national policy? Second is that cost matters. And so we've got to be really concerned about that issue, because clearly, I think in many countries now, the off-grid is the dominant economic model for rural electrification. And I think that so that issue of, in a sense, looking at the real cost of grid extension and versus these decentralized options needs to have, in a sense, greater clarity, as we've talked about, Condi. And I think that in some cases, it also is a broader policy framework where the country, including like in Bangladesh, is importing oil for major power plants. They're building those they're running those power plants. They're subsidizing the electricity to the rural areas, and that's in a sense hindering some of the investment potential for the renewables. Although people, because they're not getting reliable supplies, are turning to, in a sense, diesel generators, and now to, in a sense, solar and renewable systems. So we have to look at cost in a broader framework than just the issue of what's the cost of the village. And third point relates to the fact is, if we can establish these frameworks, whether it's an ITCL type of framework or another framework, then we can mobilize both private, IFI, and local financial resources to provide the framework for financing for the entrepreneurs that can come in and really make this happen faster than a government-run program, so that the private sector partnership model is critical. Thank you.
Yes, Adnan?
Just very quickly, Kande, because I noticed that all the guys dealing with financing refused to put their hand up. So maybe it's time to put the finger on them a little bit. But we did the remap, as you mentioned. You challenged us by saying we want to double renewable energy by 2030. So we said, okay, if Kande says so, we'll do it, but we have to figure out how to do it. So our global remap is really an effort to look at what happens with policy pathways, with financing, with technology that enables renewables to be doubled by 2030. And we found that it's possible to reach 36%, but it's possible with cost neutrality. But what we also found is that even with all the assumptions about transmission, growth in renewables, technology costs, and so on, we're still going to have 800 million to 1 billion people not connected to modern electricity services by 2030. Population is going to be growing, energy demand in the cities is going to be growing, and the issue is still going to be with us. So I don't think it's a competition between grid connection and off-grid. I think there is a case to be made for grid extension, and we're working on that also. But off-grid is going to be the solution to reaching those who are energy poor. Now, the question there is, we have more and more experience on regulatory and policy issues. We still have to deal with the subsidies issue and the tariffs, but those things are shaping up. But what has been the real driver, as we've seen from Bangladesh, is entrepreneurship, developing business models with the scale of financing that is needed for those kind of solutions. But the question has been raised, what about public finance? We have big international public financial institutions. We're talking about $1 billion here, $2 billion there, $500 million there. That money is not reaching the people who need it to make these entrepreneurial solutions happen. We're hearing more and more from developers that public finance creates so much transaction cost, delay in disbursement, and so on. The public financial institutions are saying we don't get the documentation from the developers, we don't get the kind of criteria we need for so on. What we need is a new type of solution of how we put public finance in the hands of entrepreneurs with the right kind of accountability frameworks. That's where the dynamism is. And, you know, commercial finance is still too expensive with the risk premiums for renewables. We need public finance to be used much better than it has been up to now. So, you know, we should ask in the rest of the 2 days, the Asian Development Bank and the World Bank, is there any thinking about this? Is there a way that we can start creating a framework where public finance can actually flow to the people who need it in the time frame that we need it? We discussed this morning that, you know, with the growth, with the cost declines in technology, PV has fallen by 70% in 4 years. It takes 2 to 3 years to disburse money from a public financial institution. Technology costs will have changed, policy frameworks will have changed. So this delay is not helping. And we had entrepreneurs with us yesterday who were saying this precise thing. So how can we make that happen? Put them on the spot.
Well, they're right on the spot. I think this is what this forum is about. The Asian Development Bank has created an ecosystem for you for 3 days to be able to deal with all of this. A lot of finance people, technology people, policy makers as well here. But I'll come to my panel 1 minute each. Adnan did a nice summary for me there, so I don't have to do it. But I'll just give you 1 minute each, your final closing comments. You'll think about your 1 minute. Jiwan, you can go ahead. I give you 2 minutes because I want you to talk about the urban poor, energy poor.
Yeah, thank you. This has been a very good debate. I think we should continue doing it. There's a couple of final thoughts from my side. The issues and challenges are so huge, and I think ADB alone will not be able to handle all of those. If you look at the investment needs of our region is so huge, we will not be able to do it alone by ourselves. So this is where working with other institutions becomes very, very important for that one. Other thing is the way we operate is, we have our country partnership strategy with all of these countries, and the countries tell us, or we have this dialogue with the governments in terms of where and how our assistance should be used in a particular country. So I think this is very important for the countries itself to getting their own ownership in terms of where they should do, where they should use ADB, where they should use the World Bank, where they should use others. So I think this is really very, very important to understand that that's how we operate. That's number one. Number two is that having said that, there are also various other initiatives and efforts going on from ADB helping entrepreneurs who have good ideas, looking for financing, either from ADB and outside. We have established this project development facility to provide some assistance into that one. We are also looking at different ways of leveraging or even channeling very highly concessional resources for our developing member countries. I think that also adds another value in supporting some of these projects. Helping building partnerships, sharing information, knowledge management, all these are very, very important aspects of trying to address of some of these issues. Particularly for whether we talk about urban poor or talk about integrating with the urban and energy, integrating energy sector and education, integrating energy sector and health, and all these are very, very important aspects. Kande, you have been also mentioning this one in some of your other discussions as well. Here in ADB, we have already begun that process. I think we need to continue doing it. This is very good, and then we look forward to working with all of you as moving forward. Thank you.
Farazan. Azan.
As discussed, you have understood that there are various components that are required to be in place to make a off-grid electrification program successful. I just want to share that at ITCOL, we have an advisory wing that professionally conducts training and workshop programs for interested parties to have a closer look as to how to make off-grid electrification program successful.
Yes. The way we think, we have to change. So must be based on the integrated approach. It's not just only thinking about the project itself, but also integrated approach. We see what is the impact at national level. So here sometimes the people just only see like some financial bank, what we discussed that 2 weeks ago in lending mechanism. They just only want to see the conventional financing scheme, the affordability of the security package and so on. But they didn't see the whole picture of the project with a good impact. Something like a gender issue, creating a role of women, because they create also for the small business scheme in that location. So here also, one need to be, the key elements also here is some administrative challenge. What is this? Lack of coordination among government agencies in the private sector, which hamper renewable energy development and promotion. And also, there is socio-culture challenge. What is that? Lack of renewable energy specialists among decision makers. Meaning that the policy makers are not be fully aware of characteristic and benefit of renewable energy, because we are dealing with site characteristic. So this key element also need to be solved. That's why, because we want to establish a legal framework to encourage the private sector to get involved in off-grid rural electrification.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Marcos?
Well, I think a number of issues have been addressed. It's very difficult to summarize from my side, but certainly one very important point is the point of risk and how to mitigate risks. And a very important part when it comes to risk is to find the right partner and to build up confidence with the right partners. For that reason, let me close to invite you all to our exhibition area, which is just next door. And it would be Mr. Junkela, Mr. Amin, our president, inviting you all to directly find out what are the clean energy solutions, who is not the, let's say, the oily hands in, or the hands in the oil pan, but rather how to develop the clean energies together. And so, yes, this is what I would like to leave with you. Please come over, find out who is the right partner. Our members will be, and all the exhibitors who are there will be more than happy to explain the details to you. Thank you.
Okay. I think it's important that these global donor agencies pushing forward more the local governments. This is, from my opinion, very often the bottleneck, the local governments. They have a lack of awareness. They need more introductions. They need more guidance. So this could be easily done by the global donor agencies who are coming with the money and who can really push it forward. What Marcus mentioned, also using this network, this alliance or IRENA, all these initiatives, Energy for All, and so on. It must be, we have to focus more on these roundtables, stakeholder workshop. We need really more participation of local players here. Very often local players who are really working, doing the ground level, are not involved here in the active process, also in the planning process. So I hope and I wish that these private players who are working all around in the world in these developing countries who have a problem with rural electrification, who are more involved and who can also bring up their voice.
Thank you. Let me just close by saying that we've had a very vibrant debate. We know business as usual. We will still have 1 billion or more energy poor in Asia, in spite of all the dynamism and successes. We don't want that to happen. And from what you've heard from the panel and many interventions here, the solutions are there. There are good examples in Asia of technology, of business models, and public policy that is in fact making energy poverty reduction in a number of countries and communities. So we can learn from each other. So the knowledge systems need to be created to share those best practices so that countries can make the right policies. And the role of government has been emphasized to create those markets. You can't run away from it. Also, integration. It is not whether we need off-grid or on-grid. We need both. We need energy for productive uses. It's connected to many things, as had been shown, but the intersectoral discussion, energy and agriculture, energy telecoms, energy and health, energy and gender, particularly the many women and children who are dying because of lack of energy. We want to thank IRENA and our colleagues, Asian Development Bank, who have put this together. This panel was not meant to answer all your questions. It was meant to give you the appetizer. Those who have the solutions and that money that Jiwan mentioned, they're in this room with you for the next 3 days. You better approach them, and good luck in the debates. Thank you very much. Let's thank our panel.